The aroma of fresh basil and garlic filled the air as I stepped into the local cooking studio on a rainy Tuesday evening. The soft chatter of younger participants echoed around me, their laughter light and carefree. I felt like a fish out of water, a 45-year-old woman among a sea of 20-somethings, all eager to learn culinary skills that seemed so foreign to me. The vibrant decor of the studio, with its bright yellow walls and colorful spice jars lining the shelves, only accentuated my sense of isolation. I had signed up for these cooking classes hoping to find companionship after my divorce. The idea of sharing meals and laughter with others felt comforting, yet as I stood there, surrounded by youthful energy, I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't belong. My hands fidgeted with the strap of my tote bag, and I took a deep breath, reminding myself that everyone was here for the same reason, to learn. As we gathered around the kitchen island for our first lesson, a simple pasta dish, my instructor, a charming young chef named Marco, began demonstrating techniques with an ease that made him seem almost magical. He moved gracefully through his tasks, his confidence radiating throughout the room. When he caught my eye and flashed a smile in my direction while explaining how to knead dough properly, warmth spread through me. It was unexpected but welcomed. Perhaps this class would be more than just an attempt to fill my evenings. Now remember, Marco said with a playful tone, the secret ingredient is always love. The room erupted in giggles as he winked at me again. My cheeks flushed at the attention. It had been years since anyone had looked at me like that. As we began working on our own pasta dough, I tried to focus on the task at hand rather than my thoughts spiraling into fantasies about what it would be like to have someone notice me in such a way again. My concentration shattered when I overheard snippets of conversation from nearby tables, discussions about school projects and weekend plans, but one name caught my attention, my son's. "Did you see Jake's mom in class?" one girl asked her friend. "I thought she was just dropping him off." My heart raced as I realized they were talking about Alice's son, my son, Jake. He had mentioned his friends were interested in cooking but never indicated they were taking classes here too. A wave of embarrassment washed over me. What if they recognized me? What if they told Jake? I tried to shake off the anxiety creeping in as Marco approached our table for feedback on our dough consistency. "This looks great. You're doing well," he encouraged with genuine enthusiasm. His praise felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. Perhaps this class might turn out better than expected. But then came another twist. During our break between lessons, I spotted Jake's friends gathered at a corner table, laughing and joking among themselves. They looked so young and carefree, so different from where I stood in life. A knot formed in my stomach as I watched them interact effortlessly while I stood alone by the coffee station. "Hey! Isn't that your mom?" one boy exclaimed suddenly, pointing directly at me. My heart dropped as they turned their heads toward me with wide eyes filled with surprise and amusement. The realization hit hard. They were not just classmates or acquaintances, they were Jake's friends. Before I could process this revelation further or consider how it might affect my relationship with Jake or these boys, Marco returned to lead us back into our cooking lesson. He clapped his hands together excitedly and announced we would be making tiramisu next, a favorite dessert of mine since childhood. As we prepared ingredients together under Marco's guidance, he continued to flirt subtly with me throughout the lesson. His playful banter made it easy for me to forget about everything else swirling around in my mind. Yet beneath that lightheartedness lay an undeniable tension within myself. Here was someone who seemed genuinely interested in connecting while simultaneously being reminded that those connections could lead down paths fraught with complications. By the end of class, despite feeling out of place initially, something shifted within me. I enjoyed myself more than anticipated and left feeling lighter than when I'd arrived. But just as quickly as hope blossomed inside me came another wave of doubt crashing down. How would Jake react if he found out about my budding friendship with his peers? As we gathered our belongings and prepared to leave the studio for the evening, Marco approached once more, a warm smile gracing his face again as he handed out recipe cards from tonight's dishes. "Hope to see you next week," he said cheerfully before turning back towards his colleagues. With my heart racing still from both excitement and apprehension over what lay ahead regarding Jake's friends, and now Marco, I stepped outside into Asheville's cool evening air tinged with rain-soaked earth smells mingling sweetly together. The moment felt surreal, a mixture of newfound possibilities mingled with lingering fears about crossing boundaries between generations that shouldn't be blurred. As I walked towards my car parked nearby under flickering streetlights illuminating damp pavement ahead of me, the weight on my shoulders grew heavier still because now more than ever, clarity eluded me completely amidst these tangled connections forming all around us without warning or invitation. And just like that, the doors swung open wide for new adventures waiting beyond what I'd ever imagined possible before tonight, but uncertainty loomed larger than any excitement bubbling up inside too. How long until these ties became too complicated? The evening air was thick with the aroma of spices and simmering sauces as I entered the cooking studio once again. The familiar warmth enveloped me, but this time it felt different. I was no longer just a participant, I was part of something more complex, something that tugged at my heartstrings. My son's friends were gathered around the large island in the center, laughing and joking as they prepared their dishes. Their youthful energy was infectious, drawing me in like a moth to a flame. "Hey, Alice. Ready to show us how it's done?" one of them, Jake, called out with a playful grin. He was the one who had first made me feel welcome here, his enthusiasm always brightening my days. I smiled back, trying to shake off the nagging doubts that crept into my mind. "Just trying to keep up with you all," I replied lightly, grabbing an apron and tying it around my waist. As we began chopping vegetables and mixing ingredients, I found myself sharing snippets of my life, stories about my divorce and how I ended up in Asheville. They listened intently, their faces reflecting genuine interest. It felt good to be heard by someone other than my therapist or neighbors who only offered polite nods over garden fences. "Do you ever miss being young?" Sarah asked suddenly, her voice cutting through the clatter of pots and pans. She was one of my son's closest friends, a bright spark with a knack for baking. "I mean, we have our own struggles, but sometimes it feels like you have all these responsibilities now." Her question hung in the air like a delicate souffle waiting to rise. "Sometimes," I admitted slowly. "But youth comes with its own challenges too." Jake chimed in with a laugh, "Yeah. Like figuring out how to pay rent while still trying to have fun." The group erupted into laughter again, a sound so full of life that it made me forget about the moral implications of our growing friendship. The evening progressed smoothly, we plated our dishes and moved to the dining area where candles flickered softly on each table. As we sat down together, the food before us, a sense of camaraderie settled in. "I can't believe how good this turned out," Sarah exclaimed after taking her first bite of the pasta we had prepared together. "Definitely better than takeout," Jake added with a wink in my direction. My heart fluttered at his playful acknowledgement of our shared experience. As we shared stories over dinner, stories about our dreams and fears, I felt barriers crumbling between us. The laughter flowed freely, punctuated by moments where our eyes met longer than necessary, where unspoken words lingered in the air between us. Then came that moment, a burst of laughter as Jake reached across the table for another roll just as I leaned forward to grab it too. Our hands brushed against each other lightly before he pulled back with a smirk. "Guess we both want some carbs," he joked. In that instant, something shifted within me. The playful banter transformed into something deeper as he leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek, and without thinking, we kissed. It was brief but electric enough to send shockwaves through me. Reality crashed back just as quickly. What had I done? A rush of guilt flooded through me as I pulled away slightly, searching his eyes for any sign of regret or misunderstanding. "What just happened?" I asked breathlessly. He grinned wider now, clearly amused rather than ashamed. "Just testing if you're still awake," he teased lightly, but there was an undeniable spark lingering between us that neither could ignore. The rest of dinner passed in an awkward haze for me. Every laugh felt heavy with implications now. As plates cleared away and dessert arrived, a decadent chocolate cake, I couldn't shake off the feeling that things had changed irrevocably between us all. Afterward, as we cleaned up together amidst chatter about weekend plans and favorite recipes, Sarah caught my eye again with an inquisitive look lingering on her face, as if she sensed something unspoken between Jake and me. "What's going on?" she asked finally when others weren't paying attention, her tone teasing yet serious all at once. "Nothing. Just cooking magic," I replied too quickly while trying to sound casual but failing miserably at hiding my unease beneath forced laughter. As everyone else continued chatting animatedly around us, oblivious to this new tension, I felt trapped between two worlds, one filled with youthful exuberance and another marked by maternal instincts struggling against budding desires for connection beyond mere friendship. Later that night, when everyone had left, the studio quiet except for soft echoes from earlier, I stood alone amidst scattered utensils and remnants from our feast while contemplating what lay ahead for me now. Was this bond worth pursuing? Or would it lead down paths best left unexplored? As if answering my thoughts directly, the door swung open, suddenly revealing Jake again standing there under dim lighting, looking slightly hesitant yet hopeful all at once. His silhouette framed by soft glow from outside street lamps casting shadows behind him like ghosts, reminding me not only about choices made tonight but also consequences waiting just around corners yet unseen. "I wanted to see you before heading home," he said softly, stepping closer into space filled only moments earlier with laughter now replaced by tension thick enough to cut through silence hanging heavily around us both like fog rolling down Blue Ridge Parkway after dark. My heart raced again, this time not from excitement but fear mingled tightly together, forming knots deep inside while questioning if crossing lines drawn would only lead towards complications further down road ahead, waiting patiently for unsuspecting travelers unaware until too late. "Jake," my voice faltered, unsure how best express everything swirling within while desperately searching for answers amid chaos surrounding tangled connections forming far beyond initial intentions set forth tonight when first entering cooking class, hoping simply find solace among strangers sharing passion for food rather than entanglements leading nowhere good ultimately. Yet here he stood, an embodiment desire wrapped tightly within boundaries blurred beyond recognition, leaving behind echoes past haunting memories lingering long after lights dimmed, fading slowly into night sky above Asheville where stars twinkled brightly above, promising hope yet also uncertainty lurking just beneath surface, waiting patiently. "Should we talk?" he suggested tentatively, breaking through silence wrapping tightly around us both, now thickened further still since last words spoken moments ago, leaving nothing untouched anymore, even fears creeping closer threatening engulf everything whole if not careful, moving forward, embracing whatever might come next without hesitation. And so there we were, caught between choices made earlier tonight, dancing dangerously close, edges drawn ever tighter, blurring lines separating friendship from something more profound. The air hung heavy with unspoken words, the tension palpable as I stood there, heart racing. The moment had been perfect, our laughter echoing off the walls of the cooking studio, the warmth of camaraderie enveloping us. But now, with my son's presence looming in my mind, that warmth felt like a distant memory. "Should we talk?" one of them suggested, breaking through the silence that had wrapped around us like a shroud. I nodded slowly, unsure of how to navigate this new territory where friendship and something deeper collided. As we moved to a quieter corner of the kitchen, I could feel my pulse quicken. The flickering lights overhead cast shadows on our faces, highlighting the uncertainty etched in their expressions. They were young, vibrant, full of life in ways I hadn't felt in years. But with every shared glance and lingering touch, guilt gnawed at me. "What if he finds out?" I whispered, glancing toward the entrance where my son might appear at any moment. "Do you think he would understand?" one of them replied softly. It was a question that hung in the air like a fog, obscuring everything around us. I shook my head. No. He wouldn't. The weight of those words settled heavily between us as we stood there in silence. My mind raced through possibilities, scenarios where I could keep this secret hidden from him while still exploring these connections that had formed so unexpectedly. But each thought was laced with fear. Then it happened, the unexpected twist that sent my heart into a tailspin. One friend leaned in closer, his voice barely above a whisper as he confessed an attraction that had been building since our first cooking class together. The confession hung between us like an electric charge before our lips met in a moment so brief yet so charged that it left me breathless and reeling. Before I could process what had just happened, the door swung open with a creak that echoed through the room like a thunderclap. My son stepped inside, his eyes widening as he took in the scene before him, the three of us standing too close together, an intimacy that felt unmistakable. "What's going on here?" His voice cut through the tension like a knife, and all thoughts of shared secrets evaporated into thin air. I froze, caught between instinctual denial and overwhelming shame as I searched for words to explain what he'd just walked into without sounding defensive or worse, like I was hiding something from him. "It's not what it looks like," I stammered finally, but even as those words left my mouth, they felt hollow. How could I convince him when I barely understood it myself? He crossed his arms over his chest defensively, a posture that screamed distrust and confusion. "Then what is it? You look cozy." The other two shifted awkwardly beside me, their expressions mirroring my own turmoil. It was clear we were all trapped within this moment, my son's gaze darting between us as if trying to piece together an unsolvable puzzle. "Just cooking," one friend offered weakly before glancing at me for support. "Yeah," I chimed in too quickly. "We were just discussing recipes." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. It felt wrong to hide behind such triviality when everything else loomed so large. My son raised an eyebrow skeptically but didn't press further for now. Instead he stepped back slightly as if creating distance from whatever chaos was unfolding before him. "I'm going out," he announced abruptly after what felt like an eternity spent searching for answers in each other's eyes. "I'll be back later." With that declaration hanging heavily in the air, he turned on his heel and left without another word. The door clicked shut behind him with finality, a sound that echoed through me more than any spoken word ever could. A wave of relief washed over me, followed swiftly by guilt. How could this have turned into such a mess? "What do we do now?" one friend asked hesitantly after several moments stretched painfully long between us. I took a deep breath. Clarity started to creep back into focus despite everything spiraling out of control just moments ago. "We need to talk about what happened," I said firmly but quietly enough not to disturb any lingering feelings still hanging around after my son's departure. As we sat down around the kitchen island once more, this time devoid of laughter or lightness, I couldn't shake off how fragile everything felt now. These connections formed under pretense were suddenly fraught with danger and uncertainty about where they might lead us next. We began discussing boundaries, lines drawn carefully so none would cross into territory deemed inappropriate or harmful, not just for ourselves but for my son too, who remained blissfully unaware yet somehow entangled within this web we'd woven together over shared meals and whispered conversations late into evenings spent cooking side by side amid flour dust clouds floating through sunlit kitchens filled with hopefulness once upon a time ago. But then another twist emerged. One friend revealed something unexpected, a secret connection they both shared unbeknownst to me until now. An ex-girlfriend who had once caused ripples across their friendship dynamic years prior when things fell apart between them, leaving scars still visible today even amidst budding affection blossoming anew right here right now. I listened intently while grappling internally with emotions swirling around me like leaves caught up in autumn winds. Jealousy mingled alongside confusion about how all these pieces fit together, or if they ever could again without unraveling entirely under pressure brought forth by circumstances beyond our control. As night descended outside, casting shadows across our faces illuminated only by dim light overhead, illuminating truths laid bare beneath layers hidden away until tonight forced them forth, unwillingly kicking up dust along pathways traveled too many times before, leading nowhere good. Then suddenly came another kiss, a momentary lapse where emotions collided once more, igniting flames previously contained within hearts longing desperately for connection amidst chaos surrounding us all. This time, though, there was no hesitation nor regret, simply surrendering ourselves, fully embracing whatever might come next, regardless consequences, lurking nearby, waiting patiently just outside, lurking beyond edges, blurred lines separating right from wrong. Yet even amidst this whirlwind chaos swirling around us came crashing down upon realization, nothing would ever be simple again, not after tonight. Not after everything exposed beneath surface, revealing raw truths hidden away far too long, waiting patiently until finally unveiled under scrutiny, shining bright light exposing cracks beneath facades carefully constructed over years gone past. And then came silence, broken only by heavy breaths escaping lips barely parted, still warm from stolen moments shared seconds ago, leaving lingering questions unanswered, hanging thickly, thickening atmosphere surrounding us all. What would tomorrow bring? Would any semblance remain intact after tonight? As these thoughts swirled endlessly through minds tangled up within uncertainty, looming ever closer, threatening engulf everything whole if not careful, moving forward, embracing whatever might come next without hesitation. The air was thick with tension as I stood in the dim light of the kitchen, my heart racing. The laughter and chatter of my son's friends echoed in my ears, a reminder of the precarious balance I was trying to maintain. I glanced at the clock, time seemed to stretch endlessly, each tick a reminder that my son would be home sooner than expected. "Are you okay?" one of them asked, concern etched on his face. His name was Jake, a bright young man with an infectious enthusiasm that had drawn me in from the start. He had become a friend, someone I could relate to in ways that surprised me. "Yeah, just thinking," I replied, forcing a smile. The truth was far more complicated than that. The feelings swirling within me were both exhilarating and terrifying. How had I let things get this far? As we continued preparing dinner together, the atmosphere shifted. We shared stories and laughter, but beneath it all lay an unspoken tension. The playful touches and lingering glances were becoming harder to ignore. I could sense the depth of our connection growing stronger by the minute. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the counter, breaking the momentary spell we had woven together. It was a message from my closest friend, Clara. "I've been hearing things," she wrote. "Are you sure about this?" My heart sank as I read her words again and again. Clara had always been my voice of reason, but now she sounded like a warning bell ringing in my ears. "Everything okay?" Jake asked again, his brow furrowed with concern. "Yes," I replied quickly, dismissing his worry with a wave of my hand. "Just work stuff." But even as I said it, guilt gnawed at me. Clara's suspicions mirrored my own inner turmoil. After dinner, we settled into the living room, laughter spilling over as we reminisced about our cooking class mishaps and shared dreams for the future. It felt so easy to be with them, like slipping into a comfortable pair of shoes after a long day. But then there it was again, the underlying tension that crackled between us like static electricity before a storm. Jake leaned closer to me on the couch, his warmth radiated toward me like sunlight breaking through clouds on an overcast day. "You know," he said softly, "I really enjoy spending time with you." His words hung in the air between us like an unspoken invitation. "I do too," I admitted quietly, feeling both exhilarated and terrified by where this conversation might lead. In that moment, everything shifted. Our gazes locked for what felt like an eternity before he leaned in closer still. Our lips met softly at first but quickly deepened into something more intense that sent shivers down my spine. The kiss felt both thrilling and wrong. It awakened something deep within me that I had buried for years beneath layers of responsibility and self-doubt. Just as quickly as it began, it ended when we pulled apart, both breathless and wide-eyed at what had just transpired. A sudden noise from outside broke our reverie, a car pulling into the driveway, and panic surged through me like ice water coursing through my veins. "My son!" I exclaimed as realization hit hard. He was home early. Jake's eyes widened in alarm as he scrambled back across the couch to create distance between us while I attempted to regain composure. "What do we do?" he whispered urgently. "I don't know." My mind raced frantically through possible scenarios, none of them good, as footsteps approached from outside. "Just act normal," I urged him just before my son entered through the door with his backpack slung over one shoulder and a casual smile plastered across his face. "Hey Mom." "What's up?" he greeted cheerfully before his gaze drifted over to Jake sitting awkwardly on the edge of the couch. "Oh, hey man." My son's tone shifted slightly but remained friendly enough not to raise suspicion immediately. "Just hanging out," Jake replied too casually for comfort while shooting me a glance filled with uncertainty. As we tried to navigate this unexpected intrusion into our fragile bubble of connection, an uncomfortable silence enveloped us all, a silence thick enough to cut through with a knife. My son plopped down on another chair across from us while pulling out his phone, a distraction from whatever awkwardness loomed over us like an ominous cloud threatening rain at any moment. "We were just talking about cooking classes," I offered weakly in hopes of steering conversation away from anything more personal or revealing than necessary. "Oh yeah? Those are fun. You should take one with us sometime." My son replied enthusiastically without any hint of suspicion lingering behind his words. A small relief washed over me momentarily before guilt resurfaced sharply within me yet again. How could I betray him this way? As they exchanged banter about their favorite dishes while sharing stories filled with youthful exuberance around food, the very thing that had brought us together, I found myself grappling internally between wanting to cherish these moments yet feeling burdened by secrets weighing heavily on my conscience like lead weights dragging me down into murky waters below where light barely penetrated anymore. When dinner finally ended hours later, and after much awkwardness, I ushered Jake out quickly under pretense of needing rest after such an eventful evening while desperately hoping no further questions would arise regarding our earlier encounter once alone again. But as soon as he left through the door behind him closed shut tightly sealing off whatever connections forged inside moments ago, I couldn't shake off Clara's warning echoing loudly still ringing true deep down inside. "Are you sure about this?" With uncertainty swirling around endlessly within my mind, I sank onto the couch feeling utterly drained yet unable to escape thoughts clinging tightly refusing release. What would tomorrow bring? Would everything remain intact after tonight? And just then, my phone buzzed once more startlingly breaking through silence surrounding me once again. The cafe buzzed with life, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the sweet aroma of pastries. I had come here to escape, to find solace in the warmth of a familiar setting. Yet, as I sat at a small table by the window, my heart raced with anxiety. The weight of my choices pressed heavily on my chest. I stirred my coffee absent-mindedly, watching the steam swirl upward. My mind drifted back to last night's conversation with one of my son's friends, Jake. He had confessed feelings for me, and I had brushed it off, but his words lingered like an echo in my mind. "You make me feel seen," he had said, his eyes earnest and hopeful. How could I respond to that? Just then, the doors swung open, and a rush of cool air swept through the cafe. I looked up instinctively and froze. There stood my son, Ethan, laughing with his friends as they entered. My heart sank into my stomach as they made their way toward me. "Hey, Mom!" Ethan called out cheerfully, oblivious to the tension that suddenly enveloped me. "Hi!" I managed to reply, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than genuine warmth. As they approached the counter to order drinks, I caught Jake's eye across the room. He smiled softly at me before turning back to join the others. A knot twisted tighter in my stomach. This was not how it was supposed to be. Mind if we join you? Ethan asked as he returned to our table with his friends in tow. Of course not, I said quickly, trying to sound casual while feeling anything but relaxed. They settled around me like a whirlwind of youthful energy, laughing and teasing each other while I sat quietly in the center of their camaraderie. The laughter felt distant as if it were happening in another world entirely. I forced myself to engage in their banter but struggled against the growing sense of guilt gnawing at me. Jake leaned closer during a lull in conversation and whispered just loud enough for me to hear over the chatter, "We should talk later." His tone was serious yet laced with an undeniable hint of longing. I nodded subtly but felt dread wash over me like cold water. What could we possibly talk about? How could I explain this tangled web we were weaving without hurting anyone? Ethan caught our exchange and raised an eyebrow suspiciously but didn't say anything. The moment hung heavily between us before he turned back to his friends. As they continued chatting animatedly about school and weekend plans, I stole glances at Jake when Ethan wasn't looking. Each time our eyes met sent a shiver down my spine, an electric connection juxtaposed against a backdrop of chaos brewing inside me. Suddenly, one of Ethan's friends shouted out something funny that sent them all into fits of laughter again, except for me. My heart raced when Jake leaned closer once more and said softly enough for only me to hear, "You can't keep avoiding this." Avoiding what? My thoughts spiraled out of control at his words. Was he referring to our feelings? Or was it something deeper, my role as a mother? The line between friendship and something more had blurred beyond recognition. "I'm not avoiding anything," I whispered back fiercely but felt hollow inside. It was far from true. Just then, Ethan turned back toward us again as if sensing something amiss between us two adults. "What's going on?" he asked playfully but with an edge that hinted at concern. "Nothing," Jake replied too quickly, forcing a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Ethan narrowed his gaze between us but shrugged it off quickly as he resumed chatting with another friend nearby about an upcoming game night. My heart sank further as guilt washed over me yet again. This wasn't fair to him or anyone involved. But how could I pull away? This emotional connection filled a void within me that had been growing since my divorce, a feeling that seemed impossible to let go of now even as it threatened everything else around us. The cafe's atmosphere shifted slightly, laughter faded into murmurs around us while my internal struggle intensified like an impending storm threatening to break loose any moment now. Then came another twist, a sudden realization hit hard. What if Ethan noticed more than just awkward exchanges? What if he sensed how close Jake had become? My heart raced anew at this thought. It terrified and exhilarated me all at once. Before long, we finished our drinks and began gathering our things while Ethan chatted animatedly about some new video game release coming soon, his excitement infectious despite everything else swirling through my mind like leaves caught in wind gusts outside. As we stepped out into the crisp air together, the group still buzzing around us, I caught sight of Jake lingering behind momentarily before falling into step beside us again casually enough so no one would suspect anything amiss, yet still charged with unspoken tension hanging thick between us both like fog settling over Asheville's streets at dusk. "See you later," he murmured low enough only for me to hear once more before stepping away from our group entirely, leaving behind only uncertainty hanging heavily within each breath we took moving forward from here. Ethan glanced back over his shoulder curiously before shaking off whatever suspicion lingered there, his trust unwavering even amidst chaos unfolding silently beneath surface-level interactions shared between friends now tangled deeper than any single thread could unravel alone. A knot formed in my throat as we walked away together, the world around us bustling on while within lay confusion threatening everything familiar. How long could this last? Would secrets eventually spill out into open air exposing truths neither side wanted revealed? The questions loomed larger than ever before. The festival buzzed with energy, vibrant colors dancing in the late afternoon sun. I stood at the edge of the Asheville City Market, surrounded by stalls overflowing with fresh produce and handmade crafts. The air was filled with the sweet scent of baked goods and spices, a reminder of the culinary classes that had brought me closer to my son's friends. As I wandered through the market, I spotted them, Ben and Lucas, laughing together near a booth selling artisanal cheeses. Their carefree demeanor tugged at something deep within me. I had grown fond of their youthful spirit, but today, a sense of unease settled in my chest. My son would be here soon, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that our worlds were about to collide in an unexpected way. "Hey, Alice," Ben called out as he spotted me. His smile was warm, genuine. "You should try this cheese, it's amazing." He held out a sample, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Sure," I replied, forcing a smile while my heart raced. The last thing I needed was for my son to see me mingling so freely with his friends. As I took a bite of the cheese, Lucas leaned in closer. "We're thinking of entering that cooking contest later," he said. "You should join us." "Yeah," Ben added. "It could be fun. Just like our cooking classes." I hesitated, glancing around for any sign of my son. "I don't know if that's such a good idea," I said softly. "Why not? It'll be great," Lucas insisted. Before I could respond, a familiar voice broke through the laughter. "Mom? What are you doing here?" My heart sank as I turned to face my son, Jake. He stood there with his friends, his expression shifting from surprise to confusion as he took in the scene before him, me laughing with Ben and Lucas over cheese samples. "Just checking things out," I stammered awkwardly. Jake's brow furrowed slightly as he looked between me and his friends. "You know them?" "Yes," I replied quickly. "We've been taking some cooking classes together." He seemed unconvinced but nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on Ben and Lucas with an intensity that made me uneasy. "Cool," Jake said finally, but there was an edge to his tone that suggested he wasn't entirely satisfied with my explanation. As we moved deeper into the market together, Jake walked beside me but remained quiet, clearly processing what he had just seen. The atmosphere felt thick with unspoken tension. It hung between us like an invisible barrier. "I didn't know you were so close to Ben and Lucas," Jake finally said after what felt like an eternity of silence. "We've just been bonding over food," I replied lightly, trying to downplay it all. "It's nothing serious." Jake stopped suddenly and turned to face me fully. "Mom, they're my friends." His voice dropped slightly as if afraid someone might overhear him. "What's going on?" I opened my mouth to respond but faltered as emotions swirled inside me, guilt mixed with confusion about how much to reveal without breaking his trust or shattering our relationship completely. "I'm just trying to make connections too," I said finally, choosing honesty over evasion. "It's been hard since your dad left." Jake's expression softened slightly at my admission but then hardened again quickly as he crossed his arms defensively. "But why them? They're younger. They're fun," I admitted before adding cautiously, "and they understand things differently than adults do." He frowned at that response as if weighing each word carefully against some internal scale of judgment. "I just don't want you getting hurt or involved in something messy," he said quietly but firmly. My heart pounded at his concern. It felt like a warning ringing loudly in my ears amidst all this chaos surrounding us. The festival noises faded into background noise against our escalating conversation. "I appreciate your concern," I replied softly while searching for any signs of understanding in his eyes, a flicker perhaps, but found none there, instead only uncertainty mixed with disappointment reflected back at me. "I just don't get it." His voice trembled slightly now, frustration evident beneath every word spoken aloud, and it cut deeper than any knife could ever manage against flesh alone. This was raw emotion laid bare before both mother and son alike. A bond fraying at its edges, threatening complete unraveling before long if we weren't careful enough, moving forward from here on out together, still somehow intact despite everything else happening around us today, especially now amidst all these people gathered here celebrating. life itself, yet somehow feeling so lost within it still. Before either one could say anything further though, a sudden commotion erupted nearby, drawing everyone's attention away from us momentarily. Laughter erupted once more as festival-goers crowded around performers showcasing their talents on stage, bringing life back into focus while we remained standing off to one side, struggling against silence hanging heavily between ourselves still. As we turned back toward each other again though, I saw something flicker behind Jake's eyes. A mix between anger and hurt mingling together, leaving little doubt remaining behind about how deeply this whole situation affected him already, even if he tried hard keeping those feelings hidden away beneath layers built up over time spent navigating adolescence itself, filled only recently by new friendships formed during these past months gone by since school started anew again. "I need some air," he finally muttered under breath, barely audible above noise surrounding us both now, turning abruptly away from where we stood moments earlier, leaving me standing there alone, feeling lost once more, watching him disappear into crowd ahead without looking back even once. And just like that, the festival faded into mere background noise again, overshadowed by thoughts swirling around inside head, echoing loudly against walls built up over years spent raising him alone, battling loneliness alongside guilt, gnawing away, constantly reminding me how fragile everything truly felt right now. But then another thought struck harder still. What if this wasn't just about friendship anymore? What if those lines blurred further, crossing boundaries neither side wanted crossed, ultimately leading toward consequences neither expected nor prepared for ahead? The questions loomed larger than ever before. The festival buzzed with life, colors swirling around me as I navigated through the crowd. The air was thick with the scent of fried dough and spiced meats, but my stomach churned. I had come here to celebrate, to connect with my son and his friends, yet the weight of my choices pressed heavily on my chest. As I turned a corner, I spotted my son, Jake, standing with his friends near a booth selling handmade jewelry. Their laughter echoed in my ears, but it felt like a distant memory. The moment felt fragile, as if it could shatter at any second. I took a deep breath and approached them. "Hey, Mom." Jake greeted me with forced enthusiasm. His eyes flickered away from mine, betraying his discomfort. "We were just checking out some stuff." I nodded, trying to bridge the gap that had formed between us. "Looks fun. Anything catch your eye?" "Not really," he mumbled, shoving his hands into his pockets. One of Jake's friends, Liam, stepped forward. "Alice, you should check out this booth over here." He gestured toward a stall filled with colorful pottery. The smile on his face seemed genuine, but I sensed an underlying tension. "Maybe later," I replied softly. Jake shifted uncomfortably beside me. "I think we're going to grab some food." He turned to Liam and the others. "You guys coming?" They nodded eagerly and began moving away from me. My heart sank as I watched them walk off together, leaving me standing alone amidst the festival chaos. As I wandered through the stalls alone, memories of laughter and shared moments flooded back. Cooking classes filled with camaraderie and warmth now felt like distant echoes of a life that had slipped through my fingers. Each step felt heavier than the last as guilt gnawed at me for what had transpired between me and Jake's friends. I spotted Sarah, a fellow cooking class participant, at a nearby booth showcasing local art. She waved me over excitedly. "Alice, you have to see this piece. It reminds me of our cooking sessions." I forced a smile as she pointed at a vibrant painting of fruits and vegetables intertwined in an abstract design. "It's beautiful," I said absently. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, concern etched on her face. "Just thinking about things," I replied vaguely. Before she could probe further, Jake's laughter broke through the crowd again, this time accompanied by Liam's voice rising above it all in playful banter. The sound twisted in my gut like a knife. "I'll be right back," I said abruptly to Sarah and headed toward the source of their laughter. As I approached them again, I overheard snippets of their conversation, light-hearted teasing about relationships and summer plans, but what struck me was how easily they engaged with one another while excluding me from their world entirely. Then something unexpected happened. Jake caught sight of me approaching and instantly stiffened. His expression shifted from amusement to something more guarded as he exchanged glances with Liam before turning away again. "Hey. What did you guys think about that pottery?" I called out casually, forcing myself into their circle once more. Liam shrugged nonchalantly while Jake remained silent, his body language screaming discomfort. "It was all right," Liam said finally before looking at Jake for affirmation. Jake shifted his weight awkwardly but remained silent. It was clear he didn't want to engage further in front of his friends. The tension hung thickly in the air as we stood there, an invisible wall separating us despite our physical proximity. Then suddenly, Liam broke away from the group and walked towards me with purpose. "Alice," he started hesitantly before glancing back at Jake, who was watching intently from behind him. "We need to talk." My heart raced at his words. Anxiety coursed through me like electricity as he led me away from the group toward a quieter area by the edge of the festival grounds where colorful lights twinkled overhead against dusk's embrace. "What's going on?" My voice trembled slightly despite my efforts to sound composed. Liam hesitated before speaking again. Uncertainty clouding his features made it clear this wasn't easy for him either. "I don't want things to be weird between us, or you and Jake." "What do you mean?" My pulse quickened, dread settled in my stomach like lead as realization dawned on me that perhaps he'd been feeling conflicted too, an echo of what had transpired between us during those late-night conversations over dinner after cooking classes. He took a deep breath before continuing. "Jake knows something isn't right. He might not know everything, but he senses there's more going on." Panic surged within me. Every instinct screamed for self-preservation, yet here was someone who cared enough to confront difficult truths head-on rather than avoid them altogether, a rare quality among young adults today, a quality that drew me closer despite everything else happening around us. "I never meant for this to happen," I admitted softly. Guilt washed over every syllable spoken aloud, now hanging heavy between us both like an unspoken bond forged through shared vulnerability amidst chaos surrounding our lives lately. The kind only understood by those who've walked similar paths before each other across generations, divided by age yet united by experience, nonetheless somehow still connected despite differences looming large overhead threatening everything we'd built together. Thus far unexpectedly unraveling slowly beneath our feet day after day until now. "It doesn't have to be awkward," Liam reassured gently. Sincerity radiated off him like warmth emanating from sunlight breaking through clouds after rain falls down hard upon earth below, bringing life anew once more afterward, even amid struggles faced daily without fail. A long way forward ahead, always pushing onward. Regardless, no matter how difficult things may seem sometimes, overall eventually leading toward brighter days ahead, eventually coming soon enough, hopefully sooner rather than later. 2. If only everyone involved would just communicate openly instead, avoiding confrontation altogether, thereby allowing misunderstandings fester unchecked until they explode, eventually leading hurt feelings being expressed openly instead, leaving scars behind long after wounds heal fully, too often causing rifts grow wider than ever imagined possible beforehand. But just then, a sudden commotion erupted nearby. The crowd surged forward toward one particular booth where someone shouted loudly about an artist showcasing their work publicly for first time ever, drawing attention quickly away from our conversation entirely, leaving both Leah and myself standing there dumbfounded, watching everything unfold around us, feeling lost amongst throngs, people rushing past without stopping even once, glance back behind themselves, realizing how quickly moments slip away, unnoticed sometimes until they're gone forever, leaving emptiness behind instead. Amidst all this chaos swirling around us, I caught sight Jake watching closely, still standing firm within groups surrounded by friends, seemingly oblivious everything happening right next him, unaware danger lurking just beneath surface, threatening tear apart fabric connections woven tightly together throughout years. spent nurturing relationships built upon trust, respect, love, understanding, mutual appreciation, shared experiences lived fully together over time, creating lasting bonds forged strong enough withstand trials, tribulations, faced a long way forward ahead no matter what obstacles arise unexpectedly, a long journey taken together, ultimately shaping lives shaped forever, changed irrevocably because choices made previously led down paths. Unforeseen consequences, unforeseen lurking just beyond horizon, waiting, strike when least expected, catching everyone off guard, completely unprepared, face reality awaiting patiently until moment arrives, finally revealing true nature hidden beneath layers. Complexity woven intricately throughout tapestry, life lived fully, experiencing joys, sorrows alike, each step taken forward, onward journey traveled together, hand side side, navigating twists, turns encountered, a long way forward ahead, forging new beginnings. Amidst chaos surrounding us, now unfolding rapidly right before very eyes, witnessing firsthand how fragile connections can become easily frayed, torn apart, completely shattered, irreparably forever lost if care isn't taken, nurture, protect them. Fiercely against outside forces threatening disrupt harmony, exist peacefully within hearts, souls shared between two separate beings, brought together, destiny intertwining, paths crossed unexpectedly, creating new stories waiting unfold, next chapter written anew. Beginning, fresh start awaits patiently beyond horizon, beckoning call inviting everyone, join journey wherever leads next, whether good, bad, ugly, beautiful, whatever comes next remains unknown, always unpredictable yet full promise, potential waiting unfold, beautifully blossoming, bright shining light illuminating darkness surrounding, world outside remind each other, stay true selves, remain grounded midst storms raging fiercely all around, daring venture forth boldly, embrace whatever lies ahead, trusting instincts guiding safely homeward, back familiar shores once again, finding solace, comfort, arms open wide, welcoming warmly back into fold, embraced tightly once again, holding close forevermore, never letting go no matter what happens next. But then, I caught sight something moving swiftly towards us, out corner eye. A figure darting through crowd, weaving expertly past people, blocking path directly straight toward direction, heading straight toward Jake, without hesitation whatsoever, intent, purpose clear, unmistakable, urgency evident, every movement made, approaching faster, closer. Nearer each passing second, heartbeat racing wildly inside, chest pounding rhythmically, echoing loud, ears drowning out noise surrounding, fading background noise becoming distant memory, replaced focus entirely solely upon figure racing forth, determined, reach destination, goal set, sights firmly locked onto target ahead, unaware consequences awaited, arrival imminent, fast approaching moment, drawing closer, ever closer until finally collided, impact inevitable, coming soon enough, ready, set, go. And just then, I froze, unable comprehend exactly what unfolding right before very eyes, witnessing firsthand chaos erupting, suddenly spiraling downward, rapidly spiraling, completely out control, leaving everyone stunned, silence enveloping entire area surrounding booth. Once bustling, lively, filled, laughter, joy now replaced shock, disbelief, confusion reigning supreme among gathered masses, unable comprehend reality, crashing down upon them all simultaneously, leaving behind wreckage, scattered pieces. Broken dreams, hopes, shattered dreams lying ground, forgotten memories lost forever, never returning again. The chaos of the moment hung in the air like a thick fog, and I stood frozen, grappling with the reality that had just crashed into my carefully constructed world. My son, Ethan, stood before me, disbelief etched across his face as he processed what he had just witnessed. The laughter and camaraderie that had filled our small cooking class moments ago now felt like a distant echo, replaced by the heavy silence of confrontation. "Mom, what's going on?" His voice trembled slightly, a mixture of confusion and hurt. I could see it in his eyes, the betrayal, the shock. He had stumbled upon something he wasn't meant to see, my connection with his friends, friendships that had blurred into something more complicated than I had ever intended. "Ethan," I began, my heart racing as I searched for the right words. "It's not what it looks like." But even as I said it, I knew that wouldn't suffice. How could I explain the tangled web of feelings that had formed over shared meals and laughter? How could I justify my need for connection in a world that often felt so lonely? He shook his head, stepping back as if to create space between us. Not what it looks like. You were all, his voice trailed off, frustration evident in his clenched fists. You were flirting with them. With my friends. The accusation stung more than I anticipated. Ethan, I pleaded softly, it started innocently enough. We bonded over cooking classes. Bonded, he interrupted sharply. You're their friend's mom. You shouldn't be bonding with them like this. His words pierced through me, each syllable a reminder of how far we'd strayed from our once uncomplicated relationship. The weight of guilt settled heavily on my shoulders. This was not how I envisioned navigating motherhood or friendship. I know, I admitted quietly. But it's been so hard since the divorce. I just wanted, my voice faltered as tears threatened to spill over. What? To feel young again? To have fun? He crossed his arms defiantly. You don't think about how this affects me? In that moment, clarity washed over me amid the turmoil. It wasn't just about me anymore, it was about him, my son who felt caught in the middle of my choices. I never wanted to hurt you, I said finally, meeting his gaze directly. I thought you'd understand. Understand? He scoffed bitterly. How can I understand when you're hanging out with people who are supposed to be my friends? I took a deep breath and stepped closer to him, hoping to bridge the emotional distance between us. They're not just your friends, they're good people who helped me feel less alone. He looked away then, staring at the ground as if searching for answers buried beneath our feet. The silence stretched painfully between us until he finally spoke again. I don't want you to be friends with them anymore. The firmness in his voice shocked me. Ethan, my heart sank at his declaration. No. Just stop. He turned away from me completely now, frustration boiling over into anger as he walked toward the exit of the cooking studio. As he left without another word, a wave of despair washed over me. The laughter and joy we once shared felt irretrievably lost amidst this turmoil, a chasm widening between us with every passing second. I stood alone in that space filled with memories of culinary triumphs and budding friendships now tainted by confusion and regret. It wasn't just about losing Ethan's trust, it was about losing myself in this maze of connections that had spiraled out of control. Just then, my phone buzzed against the counter where I'd left it during class. Glancing down at the screen revealed a message from one of Ethan's friends, Jake, who had been part of those intimate moments we shared during our cooking nights together. *Hey Alice. Can we talk? A knot formed in my stomach at the sight of his name flashing on my screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it entirely while another part yearned for clarity about everything that had happened between us all. Before I could think too deeply about it, another message followed almost immediately. I saw what happened today. Let's meet up, My heart raced at Jake's words as dread settled within me, a reminder that things were far from resolved and consequences loomed on the horizon like dark clouds threatening rain after an already tumultuous storm. I stared at my phone as if willing it to offer some guidance or reassurance but found only uncertainty staring back at me instead, a reflection of all that lay ahead and what might come next after today's confrontation with Ethan. As I contemplated Jake's request for a meeting amid this emotional upheaval with my son still fresh in mind, one question loomed larger than any other: what would happen if I chose to engage further? Would it deepen our entanglement or lead to even more chaos? The decision weighed heavily on me while echoes of laughter faded into silence around me, the vibrant life once shared now replaced by shadows lingering from choices made in moments of loneliness and yearning for connection. With trembling hands gripping my phone tightly against my chest, uncertainty flooded through every fiber of my being as darkness began creeping closer around edges where light once shone brightly before, all while knowing full well there was no turning back now. My heart raced anew as thoughts spiraled wildly through my mind. What lay ahead would undoubtedly change everything yet again, perhaps irrevocably so, but would confronting these feelings lead toward understanding or further isolation? And just like that, I found myself standing at yet another crossroads without any clear path forward.